The Red Sox get swept by the Tampa Bay Rays, who are still red hot.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I am your host, Jake Ignaszewski, and here, as always, with my co-host, NESN, Lauren Willand. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you're like, Jake, where are you? A little bit of a sneak peek. I'm here at Northeast Delta Dental Stadium watching the Portland Sea Dogs play the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. So maybe look out for a Red Sox top prospect interview coming next week. And then, maybe some more episodes that might have come from today. But we're always trying to do our best to not only keep you updated about everything that's happening with the Major League team, but also with the stacked farm system that the Sox currently have. But sometimes that stacked farm system doesn't always correlate to wins in the Major League roster. And that's been shown so far this season, unfortunately. And, it definitely showed in this series as the Tampa Bay Rays continue to stay undefeated to begin the 2023 MLB season. But this game was relatively close, at the beginning of the game. And then things just blew up in that fifth inning where the Rays were able to score 7 runs.
Yeah, this game, I was like, the Red Sox took a lead in the first and they started scoring runs. And I was like, okay, maybe this is going to be an okay game. And then all of a sudden, that fifth inning, just everything unraveled. Richard Bleier cannot find the strike zone if his life depended on it. The Rays just continued to just jump all over Red Sox pitching and just prove why they're a very, very good team. They're not going to go 162-0, but their start is incredibly impressive. And it's just another frustrating loss for this Red Sox team. And it's just, what else can we say besides this needs to be better, that needs to be better, they need to play better. It's just so frustrating. Like, what are we doing? This isn't even watchable baseball. The bar was literally on the floor coming into this Red Sox season. There was reason to be optimistic, and there were, like we've always said, that there was potential there, but what they're doing right now, the Red Sox, is just not even watchable at this point. And I said it in Thursday's episode, but the fans deserve so much more than what the Red Sox are doing right now.
And, especially, with the bullpen sort of blowing this game open, we thought that was, sort of out the door with the amount of moves that they made during the offseason, the amount of reliable, at least in our minds, telling from the stats from some of these guys' past performances in the years prior, that this Red Sox bullpen was going to be much, much better than last year. It was going to be locked down. And, in our minds, and I bet most fans' minds, a lot of the runs were mainly going to be led up by the starters, especially with how the rotation was going to begin this season, with the amount of injuries, with the amount of guys who would be filling in who aren't usually in the rotation. But, as you said, Bleier wasn't able to find the strike zone whatsoever after coming in the fifth inning for Kluber. But the biggest thing is he had 2 outs. It was something where he just wasn't able to locate his curveball whatsoever. It ended up going so far inside that it ended up hitting Wander Franco in the hand. And then we see, Ronald Ramirez end up, hitting a double, which drives in 3 runs to ultimately blow the game wide open. But, then the other thing is that we spoke about on Friday, yes, the pitching blows up and, they make this a much bigger lead than it really should be. But at the same time, the offense wasn't able to do anywhere close to what they were able to do on Wednesday, where they were able to at least creep back a little bit in. But, after the fifth inning, where they, scored those, or, they scored 1 in the first, 1 in the fourth, 1 in the fifth, but then they weren't able to do anything offensively after that.
Yeah, I mean, they had their opportunities too. And it's crazy to look at this. And then I look at the fourth inning, I think it was, when Tristan Casas drew the 14-pitch walk, which was incredible play patience by him. And the bases were loaded. They did get a couple runs out of that. They got 1 run out of that. But those are the opportunities that you need to capitalize on. That those bats need to stop focusing on putting the ball out of the park and just put the ball in play. That's, it's very simple. And I say that not being a professional ball player, but you look at the opportunities that they've squandered, and they're swinging at everything. They're swinging it's almost like their desperation swings at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Right.
just, yeah, they need to come through. They need to be able to capitalize, not even just when they're down, but when the game is 0-0, when they're up 1-0, you still need to capitalize on those opportunities when you have them, because they're coming. The opportunities
Right.
are there, and the Red Sox just are not capitalizing on anything. And I know that their lineup, it's not filled with power, but there are batters in there that can put the ball in play. We've seen it throughout their careers, and it's just, they can't happen. And
Right.
it's, I just, what's the direction? Like what's next? Because the Angels are coming to town now, and I don't know. Are you going to let Ohtani embarrass you on Marathon Monday? I'm very grumpy about this Red Sox team, but I'm not out on them. Of course, not 13 games into the season, but holy smokes, this offense, this defense, this everything. It's just like, what's next? Like, where do we go from here?
And, especially one thing that we've spoken about a lot early on this season is that the team has shown a lot more plate patience rather than what they did last year. But, in the last few games, it seems like, especially against the Rays, they seem to be a little bit too patient. They're allowing balls that are too close to strikes to really just watch at. I saw, Bobby Delbeck do it a few times. He struck out 3 times. And I saw another one with Kike Hernandez where he struck out thinking it was a walk, but, ended up ultimately striking out on the outside corner. But there's a difference between being patient at the plate and making sure that, you drive up the pitcher's pitch count as well as try to draw walks. But also you got to protect the plate as well, and you got to swing at strikes. And, maybe, they were getting, different calls from the umpire, maybe in their mind from what they thought the umpire's strike zone was. Maybe it was a little bit inconsistent. But at the same time, when you only walk 3 times and you strike out 12, in this game that happened on Thursday, it's telling that, there needs to be a little bit of that middle of having plate patience while also being aggressive as well.
If I have to see Reese McGuire take a meatball down the middle one more time, I'm going to lose it. I was watching his at-bats today, and I was just like, why aren't you swinging? Like, there's times, yes, I understand, like you said, getting that pitch count up, make that pitcher work. But when you have a pitch that's perfect, that's going to most likely result in some sort of base runners, you do that. Like, I just feel like they look like they're frozen up there. And then you had the weird night with Rafael Devers the other night when he struck out 3 times looking, which was just very uncharacteristic of him. But the same thing, like, get the bat off your shoulder. You're taking these pitches that normally I feel like they would swing at. Right. And it's just, I mean, I can sit here and complain about it all I want. I can't do anything about it, but it's just, these are the things, the smaller things that are turning into bigger things for the Red Sox, because they're not winning games. They're not scoring runs. And when they do score runs, they're not scoring enough runs. 7, 8, 9 runs should be enough to win you games. And for the Red Sox, much like last year, it's not enough.
4 hits with what the Red Sox were able to muster on Thursday, like that's not going to do really anything,
right?
Especially when a team like the Rays obviously is able to get 10 hits and score 9 runs. And one thing that you brought up on Thursday that I think is really relevant as well is guys feeling like they need to be the hero since there's not an Adam Duvall in the lineup who's red hot right now, and guys need to overcompensate or think that they need to overcompensate in order to be that spark plug or in order to score those runs. But Alex Cora, he was speaking generally about Christian Arroyo and his slow start, but I think this could be something that could be telling for all the guys in the lineup right now who are struggling a little bit. They're just trying too hard, and they're not showing their confidence and their comfortability. Maybe that's the aspect of early in the season, trying to get your footing right, trying to get back into the the everyday sort of mode of playing baseball every day. But at the same time, I think they need to sort of collectively have the understanding, if we each find a way to get on base, that's obviously going to correlate to runs, but nobody needs to be the hero. Nobody needs to be that one guy. It all collectively needs to click.
That's the thing. Like you said it best. No one needs to be the hero here. You just need to go back to the basics here. And nobody is expecting, Kike Hernandez, Justin Turner to be the heroes of this team. Even Rafael Devers, he's expected to be, yes, one of the bigger power bats because we know the power that he possesses. But this team is a very interesting group to say the least. And when you put them all together, it's almost like they have no idea what they're doing. They look lost out there. They look lost at the plate. They look lost in the field half the time. And these are veteran guys. Most of them are veteran guys. And you have the Yu Changs, who are very utility guys, and you have Bobby Delbeck playing shortstop when he should be playing shortstop. But you have athletes, you have baseball players, and they're just, I don't know if it's the chemistry in this team. I don't know if there's a disconnect with the front office, the direction of this team, where it's going. I don't think it's the players. I don't think they have issues with one another, but it begs the question, like, what happened from spring training? And yes, spring training, those games do not matter. This is why we don't look too much into spring training, because the Red Sox, well, they trailed off there at the end, but they were much better in spring training than they are right now. And what changed? What changed between now and then? What happened? I mean, yes, like I said, spring training lineups are different, teams are different, but they were playing much better.
Right. I completely agree with you. And, we talked about, obviously, the offense and some of the drawbacks on what they've been doing recently. But I bet most listeners are thinking, they scored 3 runs. How'd that happen? So, we saw, Rob Refsnyder hit his first home run of the season, which it was nice to see him start to get going. He did go 1 for 3 in the rest of the game, but at the same time, sometimes when you're able to connect on a ball, that starts a whole sort of streak that you're able to feel more comfortable at the plate. And, it's definitely a good sign. Justin Turner continued to look good at the plate after, struggling over the first few weeks, went 2 for 4 in this game. And then Christian Arroyo, he also went 1 for 3. But other than that, there was no real offense outside of that. But, I'm hoping, it's not to say that the Angels are any easier team than the Rays, but at the same time, they're nowhere close to as red hot as the Tampa Bay Rays are right now. So not to say it's a very similar thing as, playing against the Tigers, because those teams, they're nowhere close to the amount of competition, but maybe you need to take a step down a little bit against a team like the Angels, who, yes, they have 2 of the best players in the league in Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. But other than that, they have some pieces that are able to help them win games, but they're not as stacked and, have as loaded of a depth chart as the Tampa Bay Rays do. So maybe, this series against the Angels might be a good reset before, you start to go against much harder competition after the Angels series. But we're going to look a little bit more into, Corey Kluber's start, as well as what some of the other pitchers were able to do outside of Richard Bleier in Thursday's game. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about RocketMoney. So if you have tons of different subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, I know I do. I got tons of them, and I'm so disorganized with them. But RocketMoney is a personal finance app that helps and cancels your unwanted subscription, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. And I know for me, that's super helpful. I've already used it a little bit, and over 80% of people have a subscription that they forgot about, and chances are you've got one of them as well. And so RocketMoney will quickly and easily find your subscriptions for you, and then you don't have to figure out, what do I have to pay, what do I don't have to pay. You can just easily hit cancel, and RocketMoney will hit cancel for you. And then it also helps you manage your finances on one place and automatically characterizes your expenses so you can easily track your budget in real time and also get alerted if anything looks off. So also, over 3 million people have used RocketMoney and saved an average person up to $720 a year. So stop throwing your money away, cancel unwanted subscriptions, and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/lockedonmlb. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedonmlb to check out RocketMoney. And then I also want to talk to you about Gametime. So this is an app that I use all the time to get last-minute seats. It's a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you with killer deals on last-minute tickets. And they have the best price guarantee that can help you stop stressing over tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you ultimately have. And what's also great about Gametime is that they actually give you a view and images of the views of your seats. So I know, especially for Fenway or different parks that you maybe haven't gone to, you're able to actually see where in the park, what it looks like, what your view looks like. And it's actually accurate. It's one thing that, really has helped me in the past when using Gametime, and being able to not only get those flash deals last minute, but also be able to know that the money that I'm spending is worth it. Because especially with Fenway, if you get like a cheap ticket, sometimes it'll be right in the middle of a poll. So Gametime is the perfect place to snag your tickets without stress. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Term and conditions may apply. Again, let's create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. So looking at the starting pitching performance from Corey Kluber, it was relatively good to begin the game outside of letting up a home run in the first inning to Yandy Diaz. But at the same time, from what we've seen from Kluber, he's been on and off. One game, obviously opening day, he sort of blew up. Then the next game, he looked a lot better. Only allowed 3 hits. I believe it was 1 run. But in this game, went 4 2/3, allowed 4 hits, 4 earned runs, did strike out 7. But especially in that very, sort of offensive heavy 5th inning, that's where we sort of saw his control and his efficiency really dip down.
We did. And, I expected a lot more from Kluber. This is his old team. He probably knows his team a little bit better than some others on the Red Sox staff, but it was disappointing. Yes, you like the 7 strikeouts. It's a double-edged sword, which I feel like we've talked about a lot with starters this year. It's you like that strikeout number, but you don't like the runs. You don't like the hits. There's something like underlying there where it's like, oh, well, 7 strikeouts, great. 4 earned runs, And that 5th inning, that kind of where everything just kind of exploded for the Red Sox. It was just, he was almost there. He almost got out of that inning. And then he got the 2 outs, and then all of a sudden the Rays just came alive. And he needs, much like every other starter, or mostly every other starter, they need to just go back to the drawing board, go back to watch your film, see where you went wrong. Maybe it's the grip on your pitches. Maybe it's just the Rays are just very, very, very good lineup. But something needs to change between Kluber's start Thursday into his next start. And I mean, the same goes for a lot of pitchers. The same goes for not just starters, but people in the bullpen as well. I don't know how much longer Bleier is going to have a job with this bullpen, because he's just not been good this year for the Red Sox. But you expect so much more from your starters. And yes, he came in, yes, it was not an ideal situation for Bleier. Not the best, but he had 2 outs, like we said. Right. He had 2 outs. All he had to do was get 1 more out, and he just couldn't do it. And it was just a disaster.
And, especially with him, when the Red Sox traded for him in the Marlins trade, and, it wasn't something where it was like a 1-for-1, they had to sort of trade Matt Barnes or, just let him go, and ultimately ended up getting Bleier as like a throw-in. So maybe this is why the Marlins wanted to get rid of him, but at the same time, he came over to this team marketed as a strike thrower and was one of the most efficient strike throwers throughout last season, and didn't show that whatsoever in this game. And, then the other thing too is, it seems like the Rays just continue to outsmart the Red Sox all throughout this series. We obviously saw the bunt play that happened against Chris Sale, and it was essentially the same exact thing, pretty much like deja vu identical the very next day against Bleier, to where, they just bunt it right to the pitcher, and then everybody's safe and the pitcher's looking around like, where do I throw? And, that's one thing that I guess they didn't, practice it enough in spring training. But if teams continue to see that they can take advantage of that against the Red Sox with runners on base, they're just going to continue to do it.
And the Rays did it. The Rays outclassed the Red Sox in every possible category from this series. And the bunt again, I was like, oh dear. Once you realize you can do that on a team, they're going to use that against you. And that's exactly what the Rays did. I remember watching that play and I was like, disrespectful. Oh my God. I was like, again. But they know they can do it. They know that they're not going to be prepared, or it's just they're more confident in themselves than they should be. I don't know. I mean, if I'm 12-0 going into Thursday's game, I'm feeling pretty good too. But yeah, it was just they were the basics. They were beat at the basics of baseball, and it was just a really ugly series, a hard to watch series, and just like I said, it has not been fun, watchable baseball. And if you can hear my dog like shimmying around, she's clearly not happy either about the state of the Red Sox. But it's just, again, I don't know if they just have to go back to the most basic thing and just, keep it simple. I don't know. I don't know what they have to do. And there's, like, we've said this on Thursday's episode, plenty of time to turn this season around. But it's just, with every game, it's like, it's not giving me any reason to be optimistic that they will. And the second that they show you an ounce of optimism, they're like, take it right back. Like, no, just kidding. You can't have fun. And it's like, golly, like what do we have to do to watch some good, competitive, watchable Red Sox baseball?
Right. And, there's been very few close games or low scoring games, at least as of late. Obviously, we're only 12 to 13 games in, but at the same time, it sort of seems like the general sort of pattern is, they get the life sucked out of them early on when they allow, multiple runs or, a team blows it wide open, and then they sort of have to play catch up. That's how it was last season. And, you're not going to win a lot of ball games going that route. And, I did find it interesting too, that Kutter Crawford made an appearance, went 3 innings, right after, being called up or put in place for Zack Kelly. And, obviously, who knows how much time he really spent in Worcester. Worcester to Boston, not a treacherous sort of travel or anything like that. But I did find it interesting because, they were trying to keep him stretched out as a starter. And now as a long reliever, you just put him in after only 4 days of rest. Not to say that, they didn't ask him if he felt comfortable or anything like that. But now he sort of is getting out of that cycle of every 5 days. And, you sort of are taking him out of, a mental state of, okay, I'm a starter, to now I'm a multi-inning reliever. But no, we're going to throw you into a tough situation with only 4 days of rest.
Yeah, it's he's in an impossible situation because he is trustworthy. But if you're setting him down to Worcester to keep him stretched out, maybe you should have stuck with that. But I don't know. And I don't know if it had to do with, him replacing Zack Kelly on the roster, if it was just like he needs to be in the bullpen. But it was just, I want to see him as a starter. I was encouraged by his stuff as a starter. And I think it was Garrett Whitlock, that one of our everyday commenters, I think his name's Joseph. I think it was Joseph who said that Garrett Whitlock is en route to be the next Daniel Bard 2.0 if the Red Sox kind of keep on this track. And I'm like, oh God, no, no, I hope not. But could that be what's going to happen with Crawford too? If they're going to keep kind of doing this, like, oh yeah, like you are a starter. And I know that they possibly plan to pitch Bayo next week, that's a possibility. So again, you have these guys coming back who are supposed to be starters. But if you have a starter in your rotation who is giving you what you need and what you want, then you should do everything you can to keep him in that rotation. Right. And if that's, again, like we've talked to pitchers before on here about the mental aspect of it, from going from starter to bullpen, and how it does really mess up the mental preparation and even the physical preparation. But hopefully it doesn't impact Crawford too much, because like I said, I've liked what I've seen from him. And even I liked what I saw from him on Thursday. I mean, 1 earned run, sure, but at that point it was like whatever at that point. So hopefully they figure out a steady plan for him. Hopefully they figure out this rotation before April ends, like a solid 5-man rotation where they're not just like, oh, hey, Garrett Whitlock, you go in the bullpen now. Oh, wait, come back because we need a starter. Right. It's fine if you want to do a spot start, 100% fine. Spot starts, those have to happen sometimes. But we don't need to be doing this all season when you have a slew of pitchers here that can be starters. And maybe this is something maybe you need to think about, like, does Chris Sale go to the bullpen now?
Right. And, the only thing for me was having that mindset of being a starter. Like you could have waited that 5th day to where he has that full rest. He's already in that cycle. That's the only thing for me that, like, it felt a little bit weird that, they just stuck him right in there on his 4th day. Who knows how big of a difference that really makes. And, it's only 3 innings, but that's the first thing that came to my mind. Also, if you knew that you want to keep him stretched out as a starter, why isn't Tanner Houck in the bullpen? Like, that, because he's going to go there anyways. And, it just continues to mount up the question marks. But, I can sort of, answer my own questions is Alex Cora talk to these guys. He knows best. He has the experience in being able to, manage these different arms. But at the same time, there's a trust, but then also, there's a reason for questions. And, we'll see how it ultimately does play out. And, I also, saw James Paxton mention to Beyond the Monster that he hasn't had any conversations with the front office that could be pitching out of the bullpen. He's only had conversations about the rotation. So that's relatively telling to me that, the rotation is already kind of set, but curious to see how everything does ultimately play out. But we're going to speak a little bit more about Zack Kelly and his injury, because we didn't really go too much into it on Thursday since we hadn't had the information just yet. But before we do that, Lauren wants to talk to you about Ultimate Pro Baseball GM.
I absolutely love this game. We've talked about it now for a few weeks, and it is so much fun. I'm having a lot of fun playing with it, even though I'm not very good, but it's created a lot of friendly competition from the Locked On hosts. And I'm not really a person who likes to play games on their phone. I'm more a console person or a bigger screen like an iPad or even my laptop, but I am very much hooked on this game. It's one of the coolest games I've played in such a long time. And I'm someone who I thought, hey, I can definitely manage a Major League Baseball franchise, but no, it is not that easy at all. And if you've had the same thought, once you click the QR code and play with us on Ultimate Baseball GM, go download the game immediately. It allows you to manage every strategic aspect of a franchise. You play through the seasons and you hopefully lead your franchise and your fans to glory as you hopefully build a historic dynasty. And you are responsible for hiring the right coaches and staff, managing the team finances. So you can probably see where I went wrong, scouting and drafting the players, which means you also have to manage some difficult personalities. And of course, injuries are a part of the seasons as well. So you navigate your franchise through free agency, all the ups and downs of a season, even one like the 2023 Boston Red Sox. This is a challenging and realistic game. Ultimate Baseball GM is completely free, and it's also playable offline. So you play on the go as you want, when you want to. Like I said, we're having a lot of fun at Locked On. We're having a lot of friendly competition. Some hosts are getting much further than others, and some cannot get out of their own way. I'm looking at me. But Locked On Red Sox listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com. Scan the QR code if you are watching on YouTube, or just look it up in the App Store. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today.
So luckily on Thursday, we got some relatively good news about Zack Kelly. Not, the best news. He was placed on a 15-day IL with a right elbow inflammation, which, Brian Bayo had a very similar thing throughout spring training. And, he's just starting to go through his rehab, after, it happened a month or so ago. But, at least with him, they wanted to work him back a little bit slower since he's relatively young. But curious to sort of see how this all plays out for Zack Kelly, because, obviously with this sort of indication of the right elbow inflammation, it's early on in terms of them fully evaluating if he might potentially need Tommy John surgery, or, if this is just a situation where they, shut him down for a few weeks and then have him, do some treatment. And, through doing some research, like it takes 6 to 9 weeks to where after a player gets that inflammation to where he's able to start throwing again. And so that just begs the question, is Kutter Crawford the long-term, or at least, the fill-in player for the next 6 to 9 weeks until Kelly's ultimately ready? Then the whole question mark is when Wyatt Mills coming back, Joey Rodriguez. But at the same time, I'm just grateful that, Kelly and his ultimate reaction of after it happened didn't fully indicate that it was the worst case scenario.
He's not out of the woods yet. He still needs to have his imaging, but I think that right now the 15-day IL is the move for him, and that helped them get Kutter Crawford back up. So I hope it's just inflammation. I really do. It's that reaction just said so much to me. And obviously, like I said, he's not out of the woods. He's getting his imaging done on Friday, and hopefully before the first game against the Angels, we'll have our answers. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get imaging, and I don't know if that's X-rays, MRI, CT. And who knows if the inflammation is that bad? Maybe it'll be inconclusive. So this might be a longer road. I really hope the best for him, like we mentioned on Thursday's episode. The path he's taken, the work he's put in, the injuries he's overcome, including a torn UCL. It sucks. And it sucks to happen to anyone. But when you see the reaction from Zack Kelly and somebody that we both know it's just such a bummer. But you mentioned other names, Wyatt Mills, Joely Rodriguez. It's becoming a logjam, but it's not a bad thing because I think that, well, I think that there are obvious pitchers in the bullpen that could get DFA'd or even optioned to Worcester, but we haven't seen that obvious move get made throughout the offseason, right, even this season. But it'll be really interesting to see kind of how they handle Mills, who just started resuming throwing this week, and Joely Rodriguez to see what he does and to see how Crawford handles himself in the bullpen. I hope, obviously, the hope and the optimism is Zack Kelly does return at some point this year, and hopefully we get good news on Friday. I am crossing my fingers so tight that we get the good news that it's pulled, it's just inflammation, and he'll be good for, like you said, in 6 to 9 weeks or so. But big fingers crossed for him. And I guess this is in a good way where you see the depth that the Red Sox bullpen has. And I say kind of in a good way because you have some of those pitchers in there, like they're not helping this team at all. Right. And you want someone like Kelly to be in that bullpen because he's been pretty good for the Red Sox this year.
And, it also doesn't help that, the depth and that the front office signed and Mills and Rodriguez is sidelined right now, and I think it's getting to a point where, Chaim Bloom is probably looking at this roster in the first 2 weeks and he's probably like, well, I guess we didn't get enough depth. There's only so much that you can really get. And it just seems like the Red Sox are unfortunately continuously like adding up these injuries. It was something that was really prevalent throughout, spring training, but now even early on in the regular season, it's something that is continuing to stack up. And we saw last season how much that deterred the overall performance of the team. But, hopefully one thing that, is to look out for is on April 14th, he will get a further evaluation, like you mentioned. But I think it might come to a point where they sort of have to do what they did with Mondesi, where they got to sort of look at the landscape of some of these injuries and think, do we have to maybe put a guy on the 60-day IL, have him sort of, be sidelined for 2 months just so we can bring somebody else up to get that added depth or to get somebody up from Worcester who isn't already on the 40-man. And, this is something that, comes with the territory of 162. Crazy to think that we're already talking about, putting potentially 3 people on the 60-day IL in the second week of, the regular season. But, that's just what happens, I guess, when the season starts back up and, injuries come up, when you least expect them. So, very curious to see sort of how everything all plays out. But, that's why it's good that at least the Red Sox have a good farm system. And it's not like a situation where we were like 5 years ago and we're grabbing Andrew Kashner off the street and, just throw him into the game. But at the same time, all we can do is try to stay positive as the best as possible.
Oh, man, they're making it real tough on us. We're like, hey, positive vibes. They're like, no, I don't think so. Not on my watch.
Well, even, friend of the podcast, Jarek Robbins and his podcast, like they have the whole, positivity horde, and they were having a real difficult time staying positive in their last episode. And that was before even all these injuries ended up coming up, with Kelly, etc. But, we're going to be continuing to keep you updated about everything that's surrounding the team, not only on the major league side, but also on the minor league side as well. As I mentioned, look out for an interview with a Red Sox top prospect coming this week. He's a top 5 prospect. Definitely keep your eyes out. So as always, we greatly appreciate everybody tuning into the Locked On Red Sox podcast and making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. So every dayers, not tomorrow, but on Monday, we have a very special episode with Sea Dogs play-by-play announcer Emma Tiedemann. She speaks more not only about, some different guys on the Sea Dogs that you should look out for and that have caught her eye, but also her thoughts on the overall landscape of the Red Sox major league team, as well as what she's seen over the last few years on how the farm system has really grown. So make sure to keep your eye out on that. But also, if you want to stay tuned and you want to get updates about when episodes come out, make sure to subscribe on YouTube or whatever audio platform that you listen to. and also follow Locked On Red Sox over on Twitter to get even more updates and also to try and get involved in each and every single episode. We try and post out what we're going to be talking about ahead of time, so then you guys, the listeners, can get involved and we can sort of react to your opinions. But make sure to follow us over there. It's LO_Red Sox. Also follow myself. It's at JGiggy, and also Lauren. Three Laws, Lauren with 4 R's. We'll end it how we always end it. Keep the faith. Stay positive as much as you can. And let's go Sox. Peace.